Inoue right now, you know, Inoue is bringing a lot of excitement to the sport right now. You know, it's hard to see anybody beating him in them lower weight classes. It's gonna be really hard to see somebody beating him in them lower weight classes. You looking down, you see Bam, high risk, low reward. You looking up, shit, I'm the man. Like, I'm that guy. You know what I'm saying? So then it's like, what's next? And when you got that button, like, you know, you always striving for what's next, right? Because the sky is the limit. You know, again, like I was saying, a good fighter. Right now, his rankings on the pound for pound list tell you everything you need to know if you don't know about Inoue. You know what I'm saying? You could look at some highlights. He's that guy. He's not just somebody being hyped up from over there. Like, he could fight, front foot, back foot. He could box, great head movement. He knows how to control the ring. Even when he is the smaller fighter, he's knowing how to close the gap on these guys real fast and land big shots fast. He got it all right now. At this weight class, he's already achieved what he needed to. I could see him defending. Why not throw that on the record book? You defend and then move up. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I come in. I want to know what's shaking because, in a way, this big monster, in these lower weight classes, you know, the guys that he's been fighting, they've been good fighters, but, he won't get a test like he would against Shushu, against anybody at his weight. At his weight. He wouldn't. Even if Bam wanted to move up, it still wouldn't be, the fight that, I want to see, that I'm pushing on this channel. I want to see Shu get in there. You know what I'm saying? Shu a dog. He could fight. I made a video on him a long time ago, and I was getting a lot of hatred on the video. I come back to the sport. I look at Shu. He look healthy. He still look good. He ain't got no losses. He's still talking with a lot of energy about the sport. So my investment, if he was a stock, I would have been flat or I would have went up. I'm cool with that. I'm cool with staying flat sometimes. You know what I'm saying? He got the goods. He got the goods. No Diddy. He got the good. He got everything you need as a fighter to go in there on fight night with a guy like Inoue and have a bag full of tools. And I think he got them tools. I think he got them tools. I think, Shu one of them guys, each fight he's gotten better, yes, but, I've seen him throwing in a lot more aggressiveness, and you wouldn't expect that from a guy like Shu, very professional. I like to refer to him as a guy that's a great representation of the sport of boxing. You know what I'm saying? Like, outside the ring, phenomenal. When he's doing these interviews, he's doing these podcasts, great personality. Outside the ring, he got it all. Inside the ring, he got it all. And I think, he would get up for a fight like that. Oh, you moving up to fight me for my belt? You know what I'm saying? What? And you gonna put me in a position, right? Because you so high on the pound for pound. You gonna put me in position overnight to be a star? Come on now. So then that's what I'm saying. Who y'all think wouldn't sign that contract? I know Shu would sign that contract. You know what I'm saying? I know Shu would sign that because you could just look at the opportunity and say, yeah. You could look at the opportunity and say, Inoue is a beatable fighter. He been knocked down by a smaller guy in Neri, right? That Nakatani fight, Nakatani was having some success with that reach, and Shushu is a better boxer than Nakatani. Shushu is more of a better fighter all around the board than Nakatani, right? Stephen Fulton. I will argue that when Fulton was at his best, Shushu, a fight or two ago, had a better skill set. I will argue that he had the stronger skill set, right? And we just talking about boxing skill set, and you know, Shu, he's one of them guys that he's being like he always, you know, always very professional, always very, you know, we need Shu to hit that Oshaki Foster button. Man, fuck all that. Fuck all that. This gonna get me. You see what I'm saying? You know, cause Shu right now, the fighting is beautiful, right? The fighting is beautiful. He going in there, he looking phenomenal, right? But he gotta start doing a little bit more of this so he could start going like this and you see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? You got to. You got NY behind you, right? You got NY. Imagine if every other person in NY knew Shushu name, right? You know, whether it's the blogs, whether it's the, you know, he could be a household name in the sport just off talent alone. You know what I'm saying? And I stamp that. You know what I'm saying? The haters who don't like Shu can get him a comment. You know what I mean? I stand on that. He can fight. Beautiful jab. Long arms. Right? Come on. Ring craftsmanship. Ring craftsmanship. You know, when he go in there, he carve sculpture. He paint pictures in there. You know, that, like I said, that length. Them arms. Them long arms. Catching guys in between shots. See what I'm saying? You know, y'all really, the boxing world right now, especially these podcasters, they really tripping. They sleeping on the guys with the talent. You know, Inoue is a very cute fighter. Like, he looked very good in there. You know, technically sound. You know, when he leave himself open and you think you got him, it's short. See what I'm saying? He's a guy that understands range. He's a very aware fighter. You know, you could say the same thing about Shushu. You know, when you next fight you watch with Shu, look at his eyes. Eyes always open. See everything. See everything. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, you know, that's gonna bring a lot of excitement to the sport. You guarantee fireworks. Come on now. Y'all think Shu will fight a whole 12 on the back foot? When he fought a whole 12 on the back foot, then why would you fight a whole 12 on the back foot? You're the bigger fighter. And you got all the advantages, right? So what's Shu gonna do? He gonna take on the challenge, right? This the monster, right? What he gonna do? Same thing we seen Lamont Roach doing. Half says he gonna stand in the pocket, right? Come on now. And what type of fighter is Shu in the pocket? Can Shu catch it? Can he catch and shoot? Y'all, like I said, you know, back then when I was making, I don't know the sentiment now of Shu. Back then, I'm making a shoot video, everybody get to hating. I'm saying, in a way, want to fight in the pocket, and then how he gonna handle getting caught between shots with that length and that speed. You know, Nakatani's length was almost there, but see, Shu will make up for that little bit of gap with his speed. With his speed. Come on now, come on now, and then the fact that nobody is even bringing Shu and Inoue up as much as they bringing all these other fighters up. Don't nobody give a fuck about no Errol Spence and Tim Tszyu. Don't nobody we hyping up a Errol Spence and Tim Tszyu. You know what I'm saying? We hyping up a Hitchens and Duarte. Come on now. We need to be hyping that, because for them little guys, we got all the big fighters is popping. You know, the Usyks, the David Benavidez, you know what I'm saying, the Carlos Adameses, you know, or the Shiraz. You know, those guys is popping in the sport. These low, you know, Bam, he like that in the ring, but he not like that outside the ring, if you know what I mean. Catch my drug. You know, in a way, he's a monster right now, you know, but what happens when the monster goes against a guy that's taller, longer, arguably faster, right, or arguably more precise of a fighter, right? Shu is very accurate. How does Inoue handle that? How does he handle that? And then everybody saying that Inoue is a monster. If, okay, boom, you know, give him some time. If he fight Nakatani, come back, defend against somebody, you know, just to get back right. You know, you just fought Nakatani, right? Who he fight after that? Who, and because these are the lower weights. Now he not gonna go to 30, 35. He not up there yet. See what I'm saying? So the only fight that makes sense, I'm trying to tell y'all, Shu Y'all gotta push that, pump that. You know, Shu is that guy. Shu that guy. You know what I'm saying? And I think he will rep the United States of America well in that fight. You know, you know, even the Americans that's living over there, you know, supporting over there, watching Shu fight. You know, I think it'll be a crazy fight. That atmosphere in New York, Shu Carrington and Inoue. Come on now, y'all might just see me out there. Y'all might just see me out there, you know, ringside. I might have to pop. I might have to go into the for that one. You know what I'm saying? That's a cute one. Inoue and Shu. Come on, cause Shu got everything. He one of them guys. Listen, right? Shu one of them guys, right? That, you know, since he's getting better from fight to fight, you know, he's starting to see a lot more that's coming from it. You know, his profile is getting bigger. You know, and y'all don't think he want that type of profile? You go in there and shut Inoue out. You go in there and stop Inoue, drop him a few times, beat him up. That's overnight sensation. Overnight sensation. And then, you know, his body structure, right? Shushu could fight at 30. He has the body frame to one day move up to 30. You know, I could see Shu moving up to 35 one day. You know, imagine a win like this early in his career. You know, and how marketable this guy is. I think this guy's arguably the most marketable boxer in the sport right now. In the sport right now. Who is better on camera than Shushu? You know what I'm saying? It's not many. You know, so us as fans, spectators of the sport, you know, whatever you want to call yourself, you know, we got to give those fighters who got that skill set that opportunity to, you know, prove that they deserve to be on that next level. And he deserves that opportunity to prove that. You know, he deserved it. You know, them guys coming out of NY, you know, I'm specifically referring to, you know, Hitchens, you know, my family's borough. You see what I'm saying? You know, them guys is coming out with a lot of technique, a lot of skill. You know, I don't know what's in the water. You know, our generation, you know, me, Hitchens, and my boy. But you know, the reach and the, you know, it give guys trouble. You know, and I can see it giving Inoue trouble. You know, because I don't see Shushu fighting like Nakatani. I don't see that. You know, I see Shushu as a better lateral mover. You know what I'm saying? His lateral movement is better. You know, Shushu, his head movement is better. You know, I don't see Inoue getting in that fight, pouring it on and hammering it on, and I don't see that. You know, Stephen Fulton, you know, should have been moved. You know, it was a Raymond Forrest here. A lot of situations with these guys. You know, they gamble. You know, too long. You know, they make a mistake, they lose, and you know, their career not the same. You know, so, you know, at the end of the day, I want y'all to understand we gotta promote good boxing, right? We gotta promote good boxing. Guys who are technically sound, you know, guys who are good all around the board. You know, and when you good all around the board, you know, it makes it better for fans watching, right? Because we know we gonna get an active champ. You know, we gonna get a hungry champ. We gonna get a champ that wants to get in the ring, you know, for our entertainment, right? And for his legacy. And there's so many guys in the sport right now you could question, you know, just if you categorize that. But with Shu, you know, he get the opportunity to fight anyway. You know, I feel like we're gonna see the best Shu we've ever seen, you know. And I'm gonna keep promoting it on the channel, you know, and I hope that y'all promote it. You know, Shu deserve that opportunity. You know, in a way, he's already the man. He's already that guy already. You know what I'm saying? So like, you know, it's time to go swim in another pond and see what's shaking. It's time to move up. You know what I'm saying? It's time to move up. And anybody sparing in a way from moving up is just, like I always say, they want to protect the fighter's O more than the fighter want to protect the O. See what I'm saying? Can't be a fan like that. You know what I'm saying? We need it hot and ready. You know what I'm saying? That's what I tell Lil Mama. You know what I'm saying? When I send that text message, right? I might send a text message. I might send a text message of a red light or something red. You know what I'm saying? My fellas, they might know what that means, but see, in my situation, it means something different. See what I'm saying? I send you that red light. You know what I'm saying? That mean that light on. See what I'm saying? And then she respond. You know, she can respond a few ways. You know what I'm saying? I like it just one way, but you know what I'm saying? She can respond to, you know, yeah. So I know it's ready. It's hot and ready. See what I'm saying? So I ain't even got to guess. See what I'm saying? But anyway, let me get out here, man. That's Stack Rex.